Hi and welcome to Nasha's Art. Normally when we draw we think of using pencils, right? Well, I'm going to show you an interesting way of drawing with scissors. This was a technique that an artist who's very famous called Henri Matisse invented. He was the sort of amazing artist who just never stopped creating and was always pushing the boundaries of his art. Take a look at this incredible piece called Icarus by Matisse. What do you see in this image? If you were in this painting, how might you feel? Hot? Cold? Would you feel in control or out of control? All these questions I ask link to the myth behind this beautiful artwork. Icarus was a young Cretan boy who was trapped with his father Daedalus in the top of a castle in Crete, in ancient Greece, and they wanted to escape. So Daedalus, being the famous inventor that he was, invented these wax and feather wings, and he and his son placed the wings on their arms, and for the first time they experienced flight. But of course Icarus did not heed his father's warning, and enjoying the new feeling of flight through the azure skies, he flew too close to the sun and plummeted down, 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 far below into the sea beneath him. Now, to explore making cutouts like Matisse did, the first thing you'll need is an array of coloured papers, your scissors, because of course we're drawing with scissors, and a backing piece of paper or card. It could be coloured or it could be white, just like this. Once you've got those things gathered, next step is to cut a variety of different shapes out of your coloured paper. When you're starting off, it's good to just explore and experiment. And then you can start, as you get used to the process, you can start to plan a piece of artwork. So let's get exploring and have a play. I like to start by cutting a variety of shapes, some of them long and thin, some of them round and fat, and I use the knowledge I have of different shapes as I go along to change them and make them different. So I'm going to go now with a long, thin shape. Notice that as I'm cutting, I'm keeping the scissors straight and I'm just moving the paper around as I cut. So I've got an interesting shape here. I'm going to make it a little bit more interesting by cutting it further and making sure it's got fat bits to it and thinner bits to it. There we are. I've got quite a long shape, so how about something in a different colour that's rounder? Again, I'm keeping the scissors straight and I'm moving the paper to where I want it to be. I'm still trying to go for a round shape, but I'm just exploring how interesting I can make this roundish shape. So it's still sort of round as opposed to long, but it's got wiggly, interesting bits on it, which are going to be fascinating to look at. Ooh, I like that. It's sort of roundish, but it's got bits coming out and bits coming in. It's also quite nice to think about layering sometimes your shapes. So you can see that this pink paper creates a lovely shape layered onto this yellow paper. So we call this in art the negative space. It's an interesting shape, but it's not there. That's called a negative space. And sometimes the negative space can be just as exciting. So I might cut that negative space out too, because maybe I can use it for my artwork. artwork. There we are. Keep going, cutting a variety of different shapes out until you've got maybe 4 or 5 or 6, and I'll show you what to do with them next. Once you've got your pieces of cutout paper, the next step is to explore how you place them on the paper. This is called composition, and the idea with composition is that you want to place things on the paper so that they look the most interesting and they capture somebody's attention. Composition takes time and exploration. So it's a good idea to place the pieces on the paper, step back and have a look from a little further away so that you get a good idea of what looks interesting and what doesn't. You can see so far I've gathered everything more or less in the middle, and I have a large area that's a space here. So it's a good idea to bring something into the area where there's space. Have a look at this. The shape here is a little like a secret arrow, and it points from the edge of my piece and brings the eye pointing in towards all the amazing action in the middle. You can use your pieces of paper like arrows that point people to where you want them to look. I would quite like another arrow pointing up this way. I have this long piece. If I do it that way, it looks like it's pointing out. And I don't want anyone to look outside of my artwork. I want them to look in. So I'm going to experiment and see what is it like if I turn this piece over and have it pointing in. Now it brings your eye around and points towards the action in the piece. And because this is a dark colour and this is a dark colour, it catches your eye from here to here and brings you back in. So I'm trying to explain how you can use composition to keep somebody looking at your artwork and keep them trapped inside it instead of them looking elsewhere. Once you've decided on the design that you like, the composition that you like, then you can stick it down with a glue stick. It's sometimes good to take a photo of it first so you can remember your placing, because as you stick it down you tend to move parts of it. The other thing that's quite fun to explore is actually using a marker pen to work in some of the spaces around your shapes, and you can work in different patterns, and that can look quite fun. Remember, you don't have to use white background to explore your cutouts. You can use black. Another fun way to explore this project further is to get bits of magazines and leaflets and cut shapes out of them so that you have a mixture of the plain shapes that you cut and also add into your collage shapes cut from magazines. So you get patterns and the plain paper. Of course, Matisse didn't do this. This is just a way that we can develop this project into our own style rather than just completely copying Matisse. It's always good to look at other artists and be inspired by them, but it's also great to bring in our own creativity. When Matisse did his cutouts, he actually hand painted paper using gouache paint, and then he cut into the paper. So originally his paper cutouts would have been white, and he had people help him in his studio to actually paint that paper using paints, using gouache paints. So that's also something that you could experiment and explore with. Is it different using coloured paper than if you paint your own paper and cut it up? Apparently, Matisse was very fussy about the paper he used and about the colour of paints that he used. I hope you've loved this tutorial and you've found some inspiration and learnt something new about composition. Do like and subscribe to my channel, and you can check out my artwork on Instagram and Facebook at Nash Henkel Art.